Here we go. Okay, here we go, everybody. All right. Right. Yes, yes, and yes. No one said it was going to be easy. There we go. All right. I think we are good to go. Let me do this. Send that to him. Wait, but wait, there's more. And there we go. Let's see. We can do that. Live on YouTube and Facebook and X. Connection confirmed. And we're live on the radio. Good afternoon, one and all. God, it's non-stop engines, or excuse me, sirens. All right, it's 1:05. Obviously, we're outside the Karen Reed retrial. Started, bring the latest. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. We're going to start momentarily. JR's got it nailed down. Now, I was just listening to the testimony. I have to think they're going to be breaking. Aren't they breaking for lunch? No? Anybody have an update? I mean, it's 1:05, and we're live right now. Folks, 1:06, good afternoon. Here I am. Yes, here I am, Lord. We are live outside of the Karen Reed retrial in Dedham, and you can hear, it's right across the street, you can hear some of the, yes, we are live. We are live, JR. I can hear it right now that we are live, and again, folks, we're live on AM 1380 and 99.9 FM. You can listen online at our website, which is depetro.com. But right now, as we speak, we are live on Facebook, we are live on X, and we're also live on YouTube. So we try to make it as easy as possible for you. And yes, we are live. I see Gene Rice. And I think JR, this Cindy, I'm pretty sure that JR is good to go. I know they had a little bit of a problem, but I think we are good to go. What you hear are some emergency sirens, first responders, that are happening going by. But right now it's 1:07. I think I just saw the sun had come out. The media's there. I'm pretty certain they're going to be. Is this unbelievable, folks? It's like nonstop, and it must be the only road that they can use where they have to go by the courthouse. But it was nonstop. You would think that we're like in a war zone, the amount of first responder vehicles that have to be used and go by. So I want to stay on schedule. It's already been a big day in what we're seeing in the Karen Reed retrial is how you take a first responder who did nothing wrong, and they immediately start chasing their tail a little bit regarding some of the testimony, and we have no reason to believe that this person did anything remotely wrong. It's just the manner in which they ask the question, and then now that it's been the testimony from the first trial. So what we just heard, I'm going to talk about it in just a moment. But folks, this portion of our program on this Tuesday, as we are once again, this is what it's like to be mobile. I think behind me you're going to be able to see when Yes, the defense comes out, and they're going to be going on their lunch break. So you see some of the different individuals that are outside. There was an arrest earlier. I'm going to touch on that. But let's stay on schedule. Folks, it's brought to you by PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center, who are officially open for the season. Stop in. They have a beautiful selection. Pansy flats, pansy bags, hangers and bowls, assorted colors, tulips, hyacinthus, daffodils, hydrangeas. Colors available of blue, white, and pink. They have it all. Stop in and see them. It's PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center, and look for them on Facebook. Now, check out the website, depetro.com, which is brought to you by the Cohasset Inn, 226 Cohasset Avenue, West Warwick. Lunch, dinner, drinks in the lounge. They're waiting for you at the Cohasset Inn. And there's a link right on the website. And we have all the latest on the Pawtucket firefighters. I will have another update on that story a little bit later. And again, I can tell people aren't paying attention to the story with the Pawtucket firefighters, because people are saying, what happened, innocent until proven guilty? 8 of them already gone. 8 of them already gone. The whole business of innocent until proven guilty, that's in a court of law. But whatever happened in that meeting that they had with the city officials brought in 8 of them, and 8 of them resigned. So for the people that are upset about the 8 Pawtucket firefighters and the allegations are using cannabis and selling cannabis, if you're upset about that, you might want to check with the 8 firefighters that are no longer with the city, and 4 of them immediately resigned. But I'm going to touch on that in just a little bit. But let's start off. We are in Dedham. This is the Karen Reed retrial. And the reason I'm laughing is you just can't underestimate the defense attorney, Alan Jackson. And there's a rhythm that you have to be in, and you have to be prepared for how he's going to come after them. For instance, the person that was just on the stand was a paramedic named Nuttall. And I thought Hank Brennan did a good job doing a first-person account of what it was like. So you can see the media that's out there, because they should be coming out shortly for their lunch break. And immediately, so the paramedic who was there, the Nuttall, if you've seen him, his testimony was, she hit him. I heard her say, I hit him. Now, what Jackson's pointing out is one time he said that she said it twice, and another time he said 3 times. So again, no one is alleging. He's saying he distinctly remembers her saying, I hit him 3 times at the scene. He said she had blood on her face. So then the cross-examination starts, and then he starts having him, what I would describe as like chasing his tail, and people start to make it seem as though the person is lying, even though I don't believe that they are lying. You just have to realize it moves rapid, very, very quickly. I also see some people making comments of, I've really seen a lawyer not use notes. Very strong. Proctor factor, blah, blah, blah. This seems to be, I think part of who people feel did well with the opening argument. I really think some of this falls into what side people are going on. Now, I thought Prosecutor Hank Brennan, I thought he was masterful. And I want to also say, he didn't use any notes. He had memorized what he was going to say. He delivered it. And I thought the clip that he used of Karen Reed was very powerful. Suddenly, there she was in the courtroom. Now, the defense, Alan Jackson, he had to read. He was basically flipping pages and reading them notes. And my only observation of that is I was actually very surprised, because Jackson is an LA attorney, and he's all about the theatrics. And I would have thought that he's had the case going on almost 3 years now, 2.5 years. maybe it was unrealistic. I thought he would have just come and with no notes been able to weave his tale. That's not how it went down. So, but I think, and again, so much of this depends on, and I don't like to use the word who you're rooting for, but there are definitely two camps with this case. I think Hank Brennan told, I thought, a very compelling story. He actually told it from the perspective of the first responder who was on the scene, Nuttall, and him arriving, and they were trying to save this guy's life, and then how everything played out from there. And then he also talked about that essentially it all happened, how she clipped him with the car, knocked him unconscious, and then he was lying there. The defense attorney, Alan Jackson, I don't know what to make of that opening that he delivered. And what I mean by that is he said some things that I just find it hard to believe in knowing so much about the case and how it went the first time around, in saying that we're going to have witnesses. This was Alan Jackson now. They're going to testify they saw him inside the house. Now, I mean, let's talk about what was not in, and there are a lot of trucks going by here. There was no mention of Colin Albert in this opening argument. Last spring, David Yannetti very dramatically stepped forward and said Karen Reed was framed, and the whole story that he was beaten to death in the house and then tossed on the lawn. Today, this morning, the whole theme was there was no collision. There was no collision. There was no collision. Almost to combat, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. So I also want to maintain for people that so much of this depends on how it now plays out in court. How it plays out. Can Hank Brennan and the Commonwealth thread the needle and present the compelling argument of what happened to him? And they did use the video of her, and it's video that I've seen before and I've posted before, where she has this bizarre statement of doing one of the many interviews where she is saying, in essence, that he didn't, the way he looked, and when I clipped him and that type of thing, and they can try to say she's talking about when she arrived, but so far between Nuttall and Hank Brennan with this morning's opening argument, I think the Commonwealth and the prosecutors off to a very good start. So let's talk about, but I do see people that feel that Alan Jackson was brilliant, and he did. I saw a defense attorney earlier who said he's doing a spray and pray, which means you just throw everything against the wall and throw every conspiracy thought you have. What I found that I was taken aback by was in opening argument, you're not supposed to make a promise. You're not supposed to write a check that you can't cover. You're not supposed to make a promise that you can't keep. When they said we have witnesses that are going to testify and data that's going to show he was inside the house, I don't think they have that. We certainly didn't hear it last time. So I'm not sure exactly what to make of that. But at the same, who knows? Maybe he is going to be able to weave a tale and make it so confusing. And, they truly seem to be shooting for reasonable doubt to just try to aim for at the very least, a mistrial. But the Reed case is underway. So, all right, folks, this portion of our program brought to you by Propane Plus. Call them today, 401-885-4209. In Massachusetts, 508-252-3359. For all your propane needs, heating and cooling, you can depend on Propane Plus, both residential and commercial. It's Propane Plus. You just type in your zip code, and boom, they're right there. Propane Plus, and always online at propaneplus.com. I also thought it was interesting. this morning, Alan Jackson really went after Massachusetts State Trooper Michael Proctor, who was fired because some of the language that he put about Karen Reed in a text. And as we kind of expected, it did have bring up shades, seemed to be hints of kind of the dream team with OJ, targeting Mark Furman, going after Mark Furman. As I've talked about, I fundamentally disagree. I see some people, for instance, online. I was live on TikTok this morning, and people from outside of the region that say, "Oh my God," and I've seen the movie The Departed, and I've seen the movie Black Mass, and Boston cops, and they're all corrupt. Well, folks, as many of you know, I mean, I take issue with this notion that every member of law enforcement up in this area are corrupt. Like every department everywhere, there's some bad apples, whether it's in the CIA or the FBI or anything. Whenever you have large groups of people. So, but this notion, and I think these people, they were definitely from other states. They just had this perception that, oh yeah, Boston and Massachusetts, Boston, it's all corrupt. All those cops are corrupt. I mean, we know that is certainly not the case. I've talked about, I certainly don't think that way about the Rhode Island State Police. I don't think you do. I don't think that way about the Providence Police. I don't think that way, Cranston Police, they're all corrupt. I don't think that way. So I reject the notion, you know how cops, like some of the people that I could hear them earlier, you know how these cops are, all these cops are all corrupt. That has not been my experience. Certainly not. And many of the police that we interview on the program and we have on Road Patrol Live. So I don't come at it from that. I thought it was kind of where I thought they may go with this, which is to really drill down on Michael Proctor. But I'm curious to see how Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan is going to start to walk through this retrial. It's finally underway, and I mean, some of it's surprising. A lot of it is, as far as the defense is, what we had thought, which is they're going to argue dog bites. By the way, those of you that have watched, or if you remember the Station nightclub fire, now that medical examiner who was there, she was forced out of her job after that. She was the medical examiner in Rhode Island during the Station nightclub fire, and she never showed up for the scene. I've read they did an investigation on the Station nightclub fire, they did a full report on the Station nightclub fire, and one of the things they found was they were calling her every hour, trying to explain that they had a massive casualty incident, and with 100 dead, and she would not go to the scene, and it pretty much cost her job. And then the way the scene was treated, because she wouldn't report to the scene, was pretty much a disaster. So now again, I don't know what she's done since then, but she's the person they're going to bring in as the defense expert, as a medical examiner. Now, again, I don't know what she's done since then. I would imagine, so maybe now she's making the circuit where she'll testify at a trial. I would imagine she gets paid. And now with someone like that, I admit I am biased, because my first impression of her was the Station nightclub fire and it was detailed in a report that they kept calling her, and she would literally hang up the phone and go back to bed. And that happened at 1 o'clock in the morning, and 2 o'clock in the morning, and 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what was going on at her home, but it was not resonating with her. She wasn't absorbing that they had 100 people dead in a nightclub fire, and she was the state medical examiner, and she just would not go to the scene. She never went to the scene. It was bizarre at the time. It cost her job. I never knew what happened to her. Suddenly, she's going to be the defense expert medical examiner for the defense. So that should be entertaining. Folks, this portion of the program is brought to you by Kids Club on the Pike. Now remember, birthday parties, before and after school program, summer camp, kids club on the Pike, birthday party venue, before and after school camp, preschool, and they also have, with kids club on the Pike, reserve the spot for your child or grandchild with summer camp. Now they're located right off of 295, right on the Cranston-Johnston line. It's Kids Club on the Pike. You can call, reserve a spot for your child today. Maybe it's for a week, maybe it's for a month, maybe it's for the entire summer. Kids Club on the Pike, 401 443 5336. So, folks, again, to recap, at 124, we are up in Dedham. This is day one, opening argument of the Karen Reed retrial. The prosecutor, Hank Brennan, made his argument this morning. I just thought he kind of wove it together and told a very compelling story. He also used a clip of Karen Reed that was from that Dateline NBC interview where she's saying, he didn't look mortally wounded to me. It looked like maybe I clipped him. Seems a little odd. The reason why that seems odd is I'm not sure why you, like a lot of people, why would you be discussing that if then you said he had gone into the house? So I'll say this about the prosecution opening with Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan. I rewatched Adam Lally's opening argument from last spring. I thought Brennan was better. I like that he used her own words. I think he has said he's going to use more of her own words. She's done so many of these interviews. So I thought, as you're sitting there, you got to put yourself, you're sitting there in the jury, she's sitting there, she's not talking, and then suddenly there's a clip of her. And she's saying, when I looked at him, he didn't look mortally wounded. So I thought maybe I clipped him. I think that seems odd. And they didn't use it last time. I thought it was effective. With Alan Jackson, some people felt he made a very, very compelling argument. I thought, now granted, his opening was somewhat limited because they never haven't proved evidence of a third-party culprit, and these ARCA experts, where the relationship is really compromised, and they would not turn over communication that they've had with them, which speaks volumes, by the way. The silence is deafening. But I just thought he would come out with a more defined, clearer, boom, here's what we believe the defense is going to be. Instead, to me, as one person described it, it was like a spray and pray. He was all over the place. These are dog bites. He was, beaten in the house. He wasn't hit by a car. We're going to have people that say he wasn't hit by a car. I'm not sure. I think, and he also had to address the fact that the prosecution played the clip of her talking about that. So what is the jury thinking right now on this first day? Well, they heard from her. They're hearing from the paramedic, Nuttall, and the special prosecutor Hank Brennan, I think, has laid out a very compelling story about her taillight, and now it'll be the witnesses kind of filling in the blanks a little bit. I'll say this: I think the Commonwealth is already in a better position than where they were a year ago when they had Adam Lally up there. And I don't know where it goes with, I mean, you tell me, what do people think when you have a paramedic who gets up there and they start kind of roughing them up a little bit? I know they're just trying to say, well, was it 2 times or 3 times? I just don't know how that plays on the jury. If Nuttall, who's the paramedic, who doesn't know these people at all, who's just trying to do his job, respond to the scene, does it matter if he testified, she said, I hit him, and then this time he said, I heard her say, I hit him 3 times. I don't know. I mean, that's that'll be a question for the jury. I'm pretty sure the jury last spring did not see a problem with the paramedic. This guy, Nuttall, he's not. I mean, they have not talked about him as part of any type of conspiracy. He doesn't know the family in any way. So I'm not sure about trying to like really give him a hard time on the stand if you're the defense, other than if they just want to show that over time, and it's possible that memories can fade a little bit. And the thing about defense attorney Alan Jackson, you have to really listen to what he's saying, because I think a couple times Nuttall was agreeing to things that he didn't mean to agree to. That's what I think. Folks, this portion of our program, hey, maybe it's time for a new roof. Call Roof Co. of Rhode Island today, 401-868-7149. 401-868-7149. Roof Co. Rhode Island. They would be happy to inspect your roof for wind damage and give you a free estimate. Maybe your roof has wind damage. Maybe it's an old roof. Maybe you just want a new roof. Maybe you have a leaky roof, missing lifted or curled shingles, granules in the gutter, damaged chimney flashing. Roof Co. Rhode Island. Call them today, 401-868-7149, 401-868-7149 for Roof Co. Rhode Island. Well, folks, good afternoon. 1:30 on this Tuesday. Again, it is finally here. Opening arguments with the Karen Reed retrial. And this morning, and you'll see some coverage of this, although I do think locally, I think some of the coverage is going to be diminished just a little bit because of the death of the Pope. And because we live in such one of the most predominant Catholic areas, I believe, in the country, in the Massachusetts area, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, I think a lot of the lead coverage is going to be on the death of the Pope, and then obviously, the excitement that builds with a new Pope that'll be put in place. But it's still overwhelming interest. It does seem, as I look, it's definitely more controlled this year. The buffer zone is working, and they have the people far down. I did post a video of there was someone arrested. I don't know the details of that. All I can tell you is the Massachusetts State Police, they seem to be patient, but they're patient to a point. And they ask someone, listen, you can't go over here, and then they come over here. You can't come over here, and they go over here. And it sure looks like this morning, I don't know exactly where that's going to stand, but that someone got arrested this morning. But I think it's a different dynamic, completely different than it was last time around. And there's also a lot of play. I know some people may say, well, I don't follow the trial, or I don't care about the trial. Well, there's several things about it. Number one, it's live. Number two, it's happening in real time in the general area, depending on where you watch or listen. For someone that says, I don't care about this, well, it ultimately is kind of a hit and run, death resulting as a result of a DUI. They said this morning they can prove that she had 8 drinks. Somewhere in the vicinity, 8 or 9 drinks in a span of 2 hours. For someone to say that, they don't see the attraction, what's really at play here is does the law apply to everyone? And should someone be able to get away with a crime simply because they're maybe attractive, maybe because they flood social media with rumor? Should someone escape justice because they get a high-priced attorney, flamboyant, out of Los Angeles, who just starts throwing everything against the wall? The judge is corrupt, the police are corrupt, the first responders are corrupt, everybody's corrupt. There's a lot at stake here. I don't think that's how we want the system. Getting back to the Karen Reed case, and I was very surprised at a number of things that defense attorney Alan Jackson said today in his open. I thought Hank Brennan was very solid. He started off of the point of view of the first responder, and they get the call to go out, and there's, as they say, a body in the snow, and they're trying to revive him. and how it all takes off from there. And then he leads into the defendant's actions that day, which was, she said they had been fighting, and the text messages show that they had certainly been fighting. And that night, after a lot of drinks, and she could have a volatile temper, she put it in reverse and went back and by striking him with her car, knocked him unconscious. I thought Hank Brennan, the special prosecutor, I thought he was very effective in leading that tale. I'll touch on the defense in just a moment. But folks, just a reminder, when disaster strikes, you need a company that is competent, that is fast, that is thorough. You need a company you can depend on. Serve Pro of Providence. Call them today at 401-941-5500. 401-941-5500. Serve Pro of Providence. Whether it's fire damage or water damage or mold, hey, water can do a lot of damage. Serve Pro of Providence. Call them 401-941-5500. Whether it's fire or water or mold recovery, fast, thorough, professional. Serve Pro of Providence. So let's talk about the defense. What struck me were some of the statements that defense attorney Alan Jackson made, which was, and we're going to have witnesses that are going to put him inside of the house. I don't understand. I don't know where he's getting that. You had 9 witnesses. Hank Brennan said 9 witnesses that testified that he never entered the house. They also, what I think is intriguing is that John O'Keefe had his Waze app on. I also have one. And on top of that, the phone is our companion. Your phone, you don't even realize. Your phone is bouncing off things. Your phone is tracking your movements. And I don't know what to make of, in all honesty, the defense attorney, Alan Jackson, saying, and we have the data that's going to show he entered the house. I am very, very unfamiliar with that. I want to just see this. That's interesting. Governor McKee's office sent a letter to Hasbro warning they could be running out of time asking for subsidies this year after laying a decision on the future headquarters. But Speaker Sakachi says timing won't be an issue on his end. So it sounds as though he's, trying to make a point with that. It sounds as though the governor is trying to get a reaction out of Hasbro on that. But just staying with the opening argument, Alan Jackson, he touched on the Google search, but not that strong. And we've already learned that that's going to be fully debunked by the company that made the software on it. So I'm not sure I fully understand the point of that. In the first trial, the jury said they believed the witnesses that testified that were inside the house. And then Alan Jackson is back to naming names. He did name Brian Albert, the homeowner, and says we have, I think he said, data that puts him inside that house. I don't think that's accurate. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. And then, folks, this whole notion of the injuries were not caused by a car. I come back to, I think that is selective. They're being selective with language. As I've said, if there's 2 people that are fighting on a balcony and I push the other person off and then, it's 6 floors up and they tumble to their death. And then my attorneys say, we've tested the body of the deceased and he didn't die from the push. The handprint didn't, that was not a cause of death. Well, that's true. That's true. However, the end result, right, the cause and effect of the push knocking the person, hypothetical, off of the balcony, falling to their death, the fall caused the death. So there were 2 people, and this happens, there are 2 people outside of a nightclub, and there's a fight. and a fight ensues. And one person punches the other and hits them, and they fall backwards and hit their head on the curb. This happens. This happens, unfortunately, too many times. But it happened several years ago in Providence, and the person cracked their skull. They had brain damage. I remember the case. Went into a coma, never woke up. So this would be the equivalent to me of the defense attorney saying, we've tested the fist, and the fist hitting the face did not cause the damage to the back of the head. In a sense, that's true. But the fist propelled the person backwards to hit the curb, thus causing the damage to the back of their head. So the punch, which then propelled that individual, with our hypothetical, backwards, that's what put into motion where then they cracked their skull and then perhaps they died. So the notion of the injury, he died, John O'Keefe, he died of injuries to the back of his head. The car didn't cause that. That's partially true but if someone is hit by the vehicle and that causes them to go backwards and then bang their head, that's what they're trying to argue. Now, many times on Road Patrol Live, I have been at a scene where there was someone on a bicycle and they got struck, and they were 20 feet away from where the bicycle was. Somebody was going very fast, boom, hit the bicycle, and the person went off. We've seen pedestrians where there is someone going and they get struck walking, and boom, the car bangs them and they fly through the air. So I'm not saying that the impact of the vehicle causes the death, but the vehicle impacting them forward, airborne even, is what could cause it. And they seem to be arguing that the death was not caused by the vehicle. And I'm amazed because I see that quite a bit. I see people put the comment, his injuries were not caused by a typical accident strike or something like that. I mean, that's partly true. I'm willing to bet at 141 that Hank Brennan and the Commonwealth, the prosecution, they have a really skilled accident reconstructionist. And I'm fairly confident, I think, that they're going to be able to put together a PowerPoint or video that will show a simulation of here's what we believed happened. That's what I believe is going to happen with this case. Folks, this portion of the program on this sunny Tuesday, look at this. As the sun is out, and you can see the media is gathered outside for then the defense team will go back in for the afternoon session. It's brought by J. Perry Paving. Do you need your driveway paved, maybe your parking lot? Call them. High quality, fair pricing, exceptional service. J. Perry Paving. 20 years experience, commercial paving, residential paving, seal coating. Call for a free estimate today. 401-732-1730. 401-732-1730. Letter J. J. Perry Paving. And remember, no one has a better package for veterans than J. Perry Paving. So whether if you're a veteran or maybe a relative, maybe your dad, maybe your mom, maybe your boyfriend or girlfriend, J. Perry Paving. Call them and tell them you would like to have paving done for a veteran. 401-732-1730. It's letter J. It's J. Perry Paving. Now, folks, just touching on some of the top news, I'm going to refrain from some of the Senate President Dominic Ruggiero. I know right now he's being lauded. I didn't know him personally. I think I only met him once or twice. And if I did, it was very, very casual. Nothing formal. I've never, dined with him or anything like that. But I just think there's two things at play here. One is, I get that, he was someone's father, he was someone's son or relative and brother. There's the person. And then, but then you have the person who held the, the state Senate captive and was 100% there just for labor. So, I mean, two different things can be true. Maybe amongst his friends and relatives, he was this incredible guy. And I get it. People are always upset if there's someone passes away, a loss of life. But make no mistake about it, the policies instituted by Senate President Dominic Ruggiero and the state Senate have absolutely been detrimental to any type of private sector jobs coming into the state. I mean, they were 100% anti-business. Everything was just organized labor. Everything was just what's best for the unions. Everything was putting more and more legislation in to protect the unions. Everything was no bid contracts. Everything was public labor agreements. Everything was, we just need to keep building these public projects and give them to labor. So I'm very curious to see not only who the next Senate president is going to be, but who the Rhode Island Republican parties at the State House are going to back in this. I think they should be vocal. And I recognize that Senate Minority Leader Jessica De La Cruz, I believe she enjoyed a pretty good relationship with Senate President Dominic Ruggiero, but I remember, do you remember when it was Bill Irons? He went fleeing out of the State House as they were investigating his relationship with certain entities. Teresa Paiva-Weed didn't have that problem. But then Paiva-Weed, she had the problem with gambling with the law firm. So they all seem to have something that, I don't want to say drags them down, but something that is not doing things in the best interest. But I'll just tell you, if that Val Lawson, if she becomes the Senate president, I'm just stating right now, and she was his number two. I don't know this, Ryan Pearson, but Val Lawson, folks, that is. At what point do they stop being embarrassing? And that's what people have to decide. That would be embarrassing. You don't see that in other states. In other states, you don't see a president of the teachers union. You don't see someone like that. Then suddenly, let me just move into the shade. Then suddenly start to have a position of power of this magnitude. And it's actually pretty simple because they're not there for the taxpayer. They're there just to further the union cause. And I would argue that right now, in 2025, the last thing you need, the unions are not friendly to this administration. And I would argue that I'd like to see some leaders that would maybe embrace more of this administration and maybe pick up some of these policies. The Rhode Island State House, Governor McKee, and the state Senate specifically, they are the anti-Trump. They are the polar opposite of everything that the Trump administration stands for, and especially their policies. Folks, this portion of our program on this sunny Tuesday, and again, we're in Dedham outside of the Karen Reed trial, I'm going to talk about in just a moment, is brought to you by Arch Design Builders. Now remember, maybe you need, do you need a new kitchen? Or maybe have your bathroom remodeled, or basement, or deck, or a special project. Arch Design Builders. It all starts with that phone call, and you can set up a free consultation where you get a chance to meet with Ed and Roxanne at Arch Design Builders. 401-218-9707. 401-218-9707. Arch Design Builders. It all starts with the free consultation. It starts with show them the space that you're talking about. And maybe it is your kitchen. Maybe you'd like to remodel. Show them the space you're talking about, your bathroom or your basement or a deck. Arch Design Builders. Give them a call. You're going to love the Arch difference. And it all starts with that phone call to set up the free consultation with Arch Design Builders. 401 218 9707. Ed and Roxanne, the dream team at Arch Design, and its builders. Well, folks, good afternoon. Coming up on 150 on this Tuesday. It is hard to believe that the retrial is finally underway. And by the way, yeah, and some of these people are just ridiculous with some of the things they say. I'll just throw in, I recognize the rest of the media don't seem to be doing anything with the Pawtucket firefighter story. I don't have an answer for that. I can tell you that there's certainly a lot there. I'm as surprised as you are. The information is out there. I want to give credit to, as I said, that the Valley Breeze. I give them credit. The Valley Breeze. They did basically echo a lot of the reporting that we have. Something that I noticed is there are some individuals, when they're looking at the reporting on either DePetro.com or the reporting on the Valley Breeze, they say it's people that still rely on old traditional media, because they start saying, well, I just checked the Providence Journal and they don't have anything on it. Or I just checked Channel 6 and they don't have anything on it. I don't know what world you're living in. Some of these people think it's 2000, it's 20 years ago. It's 2025. They don't have the story. This is repeated that they, repeatedly don't have the story. So now, getting back to the Karen Reed trial. So this afternoon, I'm anxious. The prosecution starts. They've had their first witness, who is Nuttall, who was a paramedic, and right now they're in the lunch break. I believe the judge, they want to move things along. It was also, though, what happened, and it can't be underestimated, is the defense ran into, the defense where the defense ran into trouble, lunch break, okay. Where the defense ran into trouble were these ARCA experts who had testified, and then Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan found that neither ARCA nor the defense were fully forthcoming as to what their relationship was. And they were supposed to produce, by order of the court, all the communication between the two. They refused to do so. They were supposed to do it over the weekend. They didn't do that. And then that's what kind of delayed the opening this morning. I think that's a really interesting development, because it makes you wonder, and I think it's fair to wonder, how bad is the communication that you would rather run the risk of annoying the court and basically defying a court order. You're willing to do that and face the consequences of it. You'd rather face the consequences of defying a court order as opposed to letting people see exactly what was in that they were looking for. I think that's really significant. As a result of that, these ARCA witnesses, they were not even mentioned in the opening argument. Just to sum up for those, and again, we're outside Karen Reed trial. They'll be going back in after 2 o'clock for the afternoon session. The trial is underway, had opening arguments, and now the first witness is one of the paramedics from Canton. I'm already seeing, though, some peril that, make no mistake about it, the defense attorney, Karen Reed, her defense attorneys, Alan Jackson, David Gannetti, they're very skilled. And they talk quickly, and they start saying things. And it's amazing how, again, you're talking about a paramedic. He didn't do anything wrong. He didn't know anyone. He was just doing his job. And in a very short amount of time, if you don't drill down on every word, they start doing what I would call they start having them kind of chase their tail a little bit, where they're agreeing to things that they don't mean to agree to, and they're saying something didn't happen, and they don't mean to say that. And so you got to be on guard. Now, I don't know how far, in all honesty, how far that's going to go with the jury. I find it very intriguing also that Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan is going to use many of the clips of Karen Read with these countless interviews that she's done. She did the interview, and we talked about it this morning on Court TV. She was on with Ted Daniel on Fox Boston, where he said, "Who did this?" And her attorney, Alan Jackson, said, "Well, we don't know." It was right on those steps where she came out of the courtroom, and in speaking to Jonathan Hall of Channel 7, she said, "I think we all know who did it or who's behind this," without fully answering. We know that there was, what you should also take away is there was no third party culprit defense today. That's wildly different than last spring. Last spring, Karen Read defense got up and announced and proclaimed she was framed. In order for someone to be framed, that means there was planning, that means there was conspiracy. They didn't say that this time. They're sticking with this argument of what happened to him. They're trying to argue that these are injuries not consistent with a vehicle strike. I'm not sure what to make of that. It seems on its surface pretty clear cut. Very volatile. She had 8 drinks. She doesn't want to go inside the house. He does. They had been fighting a lot. They had been fighting that day. He gets out of the car. She backs up, hits him, and then, peels off. So, and then he gets knocked unconscious and freezes to death. I'll say this. I still haven't seen anything that convinces me of another scenario. Maybe I'll have my eyes open during this retrial. But I should also mention for people that the defense have changed their defense. They're not going with the same, she was framed. They didn't open with that. They're going less on that. Colin Albert was not mentioned. So I know some people are 100% sold on that. They got him in the house. Hey, in that body in the snow, Alan Jackson said they brought him in, escorted him to the basement, and then beat him to death with no murder weapon and with no motive. And he didn't have a bloody lip, and he didn't have a missing tooth. And but they didn't even use that today. So you can't ignore that they didn't even go with that, as a matter of fact, meaning the defense. They didn't go with that. It sure seems as though, as a criminal defense attorney said to me earlier, after seeing Alan Jackson, said, "Oh wow, he's doing a spray and pray," which is you just throw everything up against the wall and then see what's going to stick. Folks, this portion of our program, and it's brought by Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. Call Corey today at 401-283-9815. Quality Asphalt Seal Coating, 401-283-9815. Remember, they'll do sport court resurfacing, they do pickleball, tennis, basketball, they epoxy garages, patios, decorative concrete flooring. It's Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. Call them today, 401-283-9815. People loved meeting them at the home show. You can call, free estimate, Quality Asphalt Seal Coating, 401-283-9815. Again, they epoxy garages and patios, decorative concrete flooring, sport court resurfacing, pickleball, tennis, basketball. They'll make your payment look like new. Quality Asphalt Seal Coating, 401-283-9815. 9815. Well, folks, good afternoon again. This is the real news. We are up in Dedham. This is a national story. It is the Karen Reed retrial. So this morning we're opening arguments. The first witness is on the stand. It is the paramedic from Canton. It is his last name is Nuttall, and he just seems to kind of go by Nuttall. And he was the person that Hank Brennan basically used his firsthand account of what it was like arriving at the scene in the early morning hours when this happened. So this afternoon he's going to resume. The defense was having their way with him, trying to challenge his story a little bit, and then we'll see how the witnesses go. Now, as far as Road Patrol Live, I believe we're going to be out and active later today. I believe that is happening. We're going to make a decision a little bit later. I want to thank JR. If you're listening to the radio, stay tuned for the 2 o'clock news. Everyone else, the trial is going to resume right after 2 o'clock, and we'll probably see you later on. We'll post on Road Patrol Live. For now, that's it here in Dedham.